Hello and welcome to today's video. 2 years ago I made a Jack Skellington bust out of Worbla. In today's video I'm going to make a companion piece to that bust. I'm going to make an Oogie Boogie Bust out of Worbla and Thibra. Alright, we'll get started right after this. The first thing I did is I got some reference photos on my phone, and I got some rocks like broken concrete for some weight and some aluminum foil. And you'll see here I've got several different photos of Oogie Boogie to use as references. I'm just going to do his kind of, it's a bust of him, so it's going to be his head and his shoulders. I'm going to have his mouth open so I can make some glow-in-the-dark worms to go in there. So I'll just set that aside for now, and I'll start building up my base. So I'm just taking my aluminum foil, wrapping it around these rocks, get a nice, bulkiness to it, get the shape that I want for Oogie Boogie. He's got a nice cone shape, and then I'll build up to give him his little curl at the top of his little, it's not a hat, but that's what it looks like, a hat drooping down, and then I'll start building up his face, so his mouth and his eyes. Bulk it up just a little bit more. I'm making him bigger than Jack, not to scale, but bigger so he's kind of stands over him a little bit. Then I went ahead and sketched out the eyes so I could add some foil around those to get the shape of his eyes, and I wanted them to be fairly symmetrical. Then I'm gonna go ahead and do those little ridges around there, get them just right. Once I have those done, I'm smoothing out the foil so I can add the thermoplastic to it. Now I'm starting off with Worbla. I did say I was going to do Worbla and Thibra, but I'm going to start off with Worbla. I think Worbla works really well for building up the sculpture. It's a little bit easier to work with than Thibra. Thibra, if you get it too hot, it becomes very kind of stretchy and gummy. It's like a piece of gum. So that's a little bit harder to work with, but for the base of it, I can start with Worbla. And then once I do the main section, which I just did that sheet, I'll just cut some pieces, heat it up, and attach it on there to get them all covered. So you can see I covered everything except for the inside of his eyes and mouth. And I realized his mouth, I wanted it to be a little bit deeper since I'm going to put those worms in there. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, or I am taking my X-Acto knife and cutting that out. And I'll dig out all the scraps, see if we can get him to kind of spit those out, get all that extra out of there. Just give him a good tap. So now I'm really happy with the depth of that. I'm going to go ahead and fill in the mouth, so I'm just cutting some pieces that'll fit in there. I'll go ahead and heat those up. Take my fingers. I can also take like a ball tool in there to kind of press those in. Now that I have them completely covered with Worbla, I'm going to take a ball tool and smooth out some of the edges. So when I put the Thibra over, they don't notice it. Thibra shows a lot of the detail underneath, which is good and bad. Now, the tricky part is I was trying to figure out how to do the texture. So what I thought I would do is I'd take Worbla, put Thibra on top of it, and then press a piece of burlap into that to get my texture. But I didn't want to try it on the sculpture first, so I just did a little test piece here. So I just press it in, and then I just pull it away, like pulling off a Band-Aid. And you can see it gave me a very nice texture for my burlap. So I'm really happy with this. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the details on the Oogie Boogie Bust. So I like saying that, Oogie Boogie Bust. So I'm just making some creases in what would be the fabric of his body. So I've got all those done, and now I'm going to take a needle tool and do the indentions for his mouth area where it looks kind of like teeth. The next step is making a seam up and down his side, so I do it on both sides of him. Once that's done, I can start adding the Thibra. So I just heat it up with the heat gun, just like the Worbla. Well, you'll see it droops a lot faster, and it just kind of almost like vacuum seals over it. It just really goes over the detail. It gets a lot softer and forms over what's underneath it a lot more than the Worbla. So I'm really happy with this. So now I can start adding that texture that I tested out. So the first thing I did was I took a big sheet, kind of pushed it in with a ball tool and peeled it off. And it really didn't leave much texture. So I heated it up again, try it again, still didn't have the texture I wanted. So then I decided, well, I'll just do it in sections. The reason why I did the big piece because I wanted it to look like one big piece of burlap. But even doing it in sections, I kind of kept the same direction, and I think it turned out really well. So you can see here a little close up of the detail, and I was really happy with it. I've got both sides, so now I just need to add the stitching on the outside of the seam line. So I'm just cutting little pieces of Worbla that I'll heat up, roll into a small little, almost like a little snake. That'll be my stitches. So I've got these heated up, testing it out, giving it a little bit of a curve. So I want it to look like kind of it loops in and then comes, out. So I've got these all made up, and then I just heat up the Thibra. So you'll notice here I'm heating up the Thibra. I did let the Worbla cool, and the reason why I did that is so it would keep its form mostly. So I just heat up the Thibra, take the cold piece of Worbla, push it in there. And if it distort the texture at all, I can just take a little bit of the burlap, press it in, and it won't mess up the Worbla. Now the final stretch, I can start painting it. So the first thing I did is using some gesso. It's a surface prep. I'm going to go ahead and cover all of him. I'm going to let that dry overnight. I want to make sure it's completely dry. You can see here he's all covered. Now I'm going to take some black acrylic paint and cover him completely with the black acrylic paint. Now this did take a few coats. Once I was completely happy with that, I let that dry overnight. And then I'm going to use some patio paint. It's neon green. So I'm just brushing off the excess, kind of giving a dry brush look so you can see that texture in him. So now this neon green acrylic patio paint wasn't, super opaque, so I had to go over it several times, which is totally fine because I knew it would get the results I wanted. So, it definitely pays off to put in the extra time, extra effort into these pieces. So you can see here it's just about done, just doing a few more extra coats of it. I'm going to go ahead, once that's done, let that dry overnight. And then I'm on to the final stretch of this project, which is sculpting the little glow-in-the-dark worms, and I decided to make those out of Primo Sculpey. So I basically just rolled them out into these snakes of clay, twisted them all up, and then I decided that one I wasn't happy with. I thought I need something else. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and add some little lines for the little worm segments, I guess. And so I went ahead and took my needle tool and just kind of rolled the snake of clay with that. And I like this look. It makes it more interesting. So I did a bunch of these in that glow-in-the-dark Primo Sculpey. Going to go ahead and bake these according to package instructions. Once those are cooled, we can look at our finished Oogie Boogie here. So this is the finished Oogie Boogie Bust, has the companion piece for the Jack skeleton. Took me about 20 hours to make. About 12 and a half hours of that was sculpting, and about 7 hours of painting, and then under 20 minutes to do the little worms there. So we'll go ahead and add the glow-in-the-dark worms to him. And then with that neon green paint, I thought it'd be really cool to look at him with a UV light and see how he looks and make those little worms glow. So let me get all those in place. Turn off the lights here. They already got a little bit of a glow. Bring in the UV light. And I think that's a really cool effect. I'm really happy how this looks. I'm going to go ahead and charge up the worms. Get them nice and energized. And then we'll take the UV light away. You can see it definitely has a nice glow to it. Finally, I wanted to go ahead and just show him with the Jack bust. I think they look really good together. Leave you with a few shots of Oogie Boogie and Jack. Alright, well thank you so much for watching today's video. And remember, never stop creating. Bye. Wow, you stuck around to the end of the video? That is awesome. You must have really liked the video or you fell asleep. Either way, thanks. Well, since you made it this far, you might as well like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I post new videos whenever I can get them done. Also, if you want to avoid life's responsibilities, be sure to watch one of my other videos. Bye!